In yesterday's video, we looked at the GFS Extended. Today, I want to look at the ECMWF Extended and the weeklies. Thanks for clicking on to the Friday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. This is the mean sea level pressure normally for the upcoming 7-day period of the model, and looking over the Arctic, the Northern Hemisphere. Very, very strong negative extending from the North Pacific through the Aleutians and into northwestern North America. Also, we've got the big negative over Greenland and Iceland. A very strong positive Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation pattern. And this is both the negative over the North Pacific and negative over Greenland is driving both Pacific and Atlantic air respectively across the continents. And these were the temperatures later last night across Europe. Very, very mild air being pushed all the way across the continent of Europe. And you can see if we look at the United States and North America, same idea. Very, very little in the way of Arctic air. In fact, you have to go all the way up to the far north of North America to see any sort of Arctic air. This Arctic air, by the way, is reloading in my opinion, because I think what we're going to see is both the MJO and the work of the sudden stratospheric warming do its job by transporting bitterly cold Arctic air back out of the Arctic and into Europe during the month of February. That is the forecast that I've got for both February, but also this was a part of the forecast that I have been harping on about since the end of November. So the big test will be, does it happen, or do I get left out to hang and dry, as the pattern may not necessarily evolve exactly as expected. Now, as has been highlighted here since the end of November, I did see when we would see the cold spells. I also saw when the mild spells would arrive. I was slated for it. I was ripped to shreds about it in various sources, saying that I was incorrect both with the cold spell and also the anticipated warm spell. But following the rule of the Madden-Julian oscillation has not allowed me to drift off course this year so far. It has been a remarkable teleconnection and indicator in terms of the overall pattern. The MJO has done a full rotation twice so far. It looks as if we're going to go through a third rotation end of January and through the month of February, and it's all eyes on both the Stratosphere as well as the MJO when it comes to the final month of meteorological winter. So, like I say, this is the upcoming 7 days of the model. Let me just get to the right chart. But if we look and play through the loop now, the GFS ensemble is very similar to this as well. Watch what happens with the upper air pattern. As keep in mind what's going on within the Madden-Julian oscillation. We've rotated through the warm phases. Remember, there's a lag. There is a lag between what takes place within the equatorial belt of the planet and the transfer northwards into the mid and high latitude pattern. It doesn't just simply you flick a switch and the pattern changes. It's the same with the MJO as it is the Stratosphere. There is a lag time, and the MJO has rotated already. It's already completed the 4 and 5 and is now in phase 6. Phase 6 promotes higher pressure, trying to move out of Iberia northwards into the UK and Ireland, and that's exactly what we have got in the upcoming 7-day period. The question is, what happens beyond that? Now, there is question marks with regards to the MJO. Does it drift into the null phase and it becomes a little bit less active? So far, it has been very active and therefore has been a better teleconnection, a better guide in terms of looking at the long-range pattern. Now, you have to say, if you've looked at the winter forecast, if you've looked at individual monthly outlooks, whether it be December or January, I've pinpointed time frames where I believe both cold spells would occur as well as mild spells, and overall it has been pretty spot on. I know the overall winter forecast for the timing of January has maybe been out by about 5 to 7 days, But generally speaking, I anticipated cool first half of January, milder potential second half of January, and courtesy of the MJO. Now, we know that it started off very mild at the very beginning of the month, especially over the UK and Ireland, but it was bitterly cold over Scandinavia, and that was, to me, the telltale sign that if we get the MJO and the correct forcing within the mid then high latitude pattern, we should start to draw that some of that Scandinavian cold air away from Scandinavia, down through the heart of Europe and westwards underneath that high into the UK and Ireland here. Then we would see the high pressure drift up towards Greenland. That is exactly what took place. And the time frame specifically for January in the January outlook was between the 10th and the 20th of the month. We would see the coldest spell of winter so far. And that happened. Then I said, before the cold even arrived, by the way, I did say that we would see a turn to milder conditions beyond the 20th of January as the MJO rotated back through the same phases that it did during the mid portion of December. That was being the maritime continent, phase 4 and phase 5. So if we look and see what ECMWF extended weeklies is showing, you can see where it actually starts to change. So as we play through the loop, there's the area of high pressure now starting to drift out of southern Europe as the trough that was currently over Greenland starts to drift into northern Europe once again. And also what we're going to see is a slackening of the jet strength over the Pacific Ocean and allowing heights to come up. But watch what happens. Remember, this is the mean sea level pressure anomaly here. Look at how the area of high pressure is now starting to drift, very similar to what we've seen back around the 5th, 6th of January, where we started to see that high moving across the UK and drifting up towards Greenland. It is almost happening again, folks. And this is the thing that I've been saying, repeating patterns. Why would the pattern not do the same thing that we've already seen happen twice? It would have to be some other forcing to change the equation, so to speak. But there's no reason why it can't happen again. We'll look at the stratosphere in just a second. But this is an interesting outlook here. There is no guarantee that we're going to see the coldest of winter in February. I'm not God. I'm not, anything other than watching the pattern, trying to understand the teleconnections, what they do, what they mean, taking into consideration the change in sea surface temperature profile, the change in the atmosphere as we progress through the course of the winter season. The atmosphere is changing, it's adjusting, the jet stream is adjusting with the increase in cold air. Remember the amount of cold air that we have currently over the Arctic region. It's all bottled up over the Arctic, essentially, with the mild ocean air over both over North America and indeed Europe. Now, if this happens and we start to push mild air, remember this is mild air both at the surface as well as 500 millibar heights, which is about 18 to 20,000 feet above our heads. Remember, if we're starting to drive mild air back into the Arctic, back into Greenland, what happens with that Arctic air? It has to go back south once again. And I think that's exactly what we are going to see take place. We're going to start to see Europe turning cold again. We're going to see North America turning cold again. And I'm very optimistic that based on the MJO, based on what's going on within the stratosphere, I think we still have got plenty of winter to come. That is my hunch. That has been part of the forecast, and I'm sticking to it. Now let's have a look and see what's going on within the 10 millibar level. That's a way up at the top of the stratosphere. Not looking over enthusiastic, is it? Looks as if we've got the increase in cold at the upper levels of the stratosphere. If we look a week from now, and you can see that we increase the cold across the polar stratosphere here, looking all the way out to 10 days from now. And I've got a reason why I'm showing you this here, because I know there's people out there that are going to jump on this and say that there is the kiss of death when it comes to the cold February. So you can see here that the stratospheric polar vortex is gaining strength at the 10 millibar level here, and that certainly would not bode very well for cold and northerly blocking. We skip all the way out to 360 hours at the 10 millibar level, and you can see here that we have a fairly robust polar vortex, strong mean zonal winds you would expect at the 10 millibar level at this time frame. So this is the week 1 into week 2 of February. Notice here that we're starting to see a little bit of warming taking place over the Asian side of the pole, which is rather interesting, something that we do need to maybe keep an eye on as we go through the month of February. I'm talking more about the month of March with this, by the way. As you can see here, it becomes a little bit stronger at the very end of the run. Now, remember what's just taken place with regards to the reversal of the mean zonal winds. We have seen a strong warming taking place, an attack on the stratospheric polar vortex in recent weeks. Now, I still think that we are going to see the response to that into the lower stratosphere and, more importantly, the troposphere. So if we look at that 70 millibar level, so remember what I just showed you with the 10 millibar level, which is the top of the stratosphere. This is the 70 HPA level, which is the lowest portion of the stratosphere where it meets the troposphere and the tropopause, which is the boundary layer of the atmosphere where it separates stratosphere with the troposphere. Look at how we've got warming drifting out of the eastern portions of Asia across the top of North America and towards the North Atlantic here. Isn't that rather interesting? Now let's continue to skip forward 10 days from now, and you can see here that we have that warming continuing to drift across the top of North America and into northern portions of the Atlantic and Greenland. Now this, folks, is a very different look. This is what shows you the difference in the different layers of the atmosphere and how you cannot take one thing as a given. This is the same time frame at 10 millibars. Look, let's go back to the 70 millibar level, and you can see here the difference. Now that, folks, would promote blocking North Atlantic, Greenland, and that would be your negative North Atlantic oscillation, Arctic oscillation pattern. Now, I believe anyway that the models are going to continue to show a negative of the North Atlantic oscillation as we go through the early portions of February here. I think we're going to see that response. Still a little bit of a question mark, but I think the MJO is going to try and nose phase 7 into phase 8 into phase 1 here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to monitor this situation very, very carefully here, because that would be what I would expect to take place. I think the MJO is going to go back into the phases that favour blocking and cold over North America and Europe, but also with what's going on within the lowest portion of the stratosphere here, the Arctic oscillation as well. Firm positive at the moment here. Look at where we've been and look at where some of the model members are taking it. The end of week 1 into the second week of February here. Isn't that rather interesting? Very exciting times, I think, to come in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, it's mild at the moment. It's probably rather boring, I have to say. But I think we have got a world of interesting times to come. So I'm going to leave it there, but I'm going to end with this. I hope you can subscribe to the channel if you're a lover of all things weather. I'm edging ever closer to the 6,000 subscriber mark. Help me get there by hitting the big red button. If you enjoy the content, like the video, let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content, and share with your friends and family if they are interested in all things weather as well. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and I'll see you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye for now.